Good afternoon, boys and girls. If you missed class today, here is an explanation of what we are supposed to do. So we are going to be talking about metaphors in Las Papas and also metaphors throughout the text so far. So if you remember, we did talk about some metaphors in Las Almendras. So go ahead and take a look and read the metaphors and what they mean from the metaphors that we did previously. But the metaphors we're going to be talking about today are two metaphors in Las Uvas, and a metaphor in Los Higos, and a metaphor in Las Papas. And I want you to think about, what do you think the metaphor means? So I'm going to read the metaphor on page 15, and then I want you to think about, what does it mean? Now, this can be found in your workbook on page 67. It is also a Google Doc in your ELA classwork for the day. So on page 15, the metaphor says, do not be afraid to start over. So I'm going to read the page, and then I want you to think about, what does it mean? So I'm starting at the bottom of page 14. Esperanza picked up her own crochet needle and copied Abuelita's movements, and then looked at her own crocheting. The tops of her mountains were lopsided, and the bottoms of her valleys were all bunched up. Abuelita smiled, reached over, and pulled the yarn, unraveling all of Esperanza's rows. Do not be afraid to start over, she said. Esperanza sighed and began again with 10 stitches. So if you read page 14 and then page 15, you might get an idea about what Abuelita is really saying to Esperanza about starting over. If you turn to page 51, I'm going to be reading this page and the metaphor, and then I want you to think, what does it mean? So I'm going to start at the top of page 51. They pulled a blanket under her chin, and Esperanza went to her and held her hand. She remembered the night that Alfonso and Miguel brought Papa home in the wagon. How long ago was that? She knew that it had only been a few weeks, but it seemed like many lifetimes ago. Esperanza tenderly hugged and kissed Abuelita. Minita, don't worry. Minita, we won't be able to communicate. The mail is unpredictable, and I'm sure your uncles will be watching my correspondence. But I will come. Of that, you can be certain. While you are waiting, finish this for me. She handed Esperanza the bundle of crocheting. Look at the zigzag of the blanket, mountains and valleys. Right now, you are in the bottom of the valley, and your problems loom big around you. But soon, you will be at the top of a mountain again. After you lived many mountains and valleys, we will be together. Through her tears, Esperanza said, please get well. Please come to us. So the metaphor is, look at the zigzag of the blanket, mountains and valleys. Right now you are in the bottom of the valley and your problems loom big around you, but soon you will be at the top of the mountain again. So what do you think this metaphor means? And type your answer here. All right, Las Papas, page 177 through 178. I'm going to read the page and the metaphor, and then I want you to think about, what does it mean? Page 177. The doctor had moved Mama to a ward for people with long-term illnesses. There were only 4 other people on the floor, and the patients were spread out. Their occupied beds scattered among the rows of bare mattresses in the long room. Mama slept and didn't wake, even to say hello. Nevertheless, Esperanza sat next to her, crocheting a few rows on the blanket, and told Mama about the sheds and Isabel and the strikers. She told her that Lupe and Pepe could almost walk now, and that Miguel thought that Papa's roses showed signs of growth. Mama didn't wait to say goodbye either. Esperanza tucked the blanket around her, hoping that the color from the blanket would slowly seep into Mama's cheeks. She put the stone on the night table and kissed Mama goodbye. Don't worry, I will take care of everything. I will be la patrona for the family now. So remember, Mama is really sick and she's pale, and Esperanza is talking about getting a job to support them. So the metaphor says Esperanza tucked the blanket around her, hoping the color from the blanket would slowly seep into Mama's cheeks. What do you think that means? So it is your job to think about these metaphors, 1, 2, 3 metaphors, and just write your opinion. What do you think it means? Reread these pages if you need to, and then write your answers in these squares. There's also a question down at the bottom. It says, Abuelita's blanket is woven throughout the story. That means they talk about the blanket throughout the book so far. What themes does this metaphor convey? Underline the best answers. So you're going to underline or highlight the answers that you think are correct, talking about the metaphors having to do with Abuelita's blanket throughout the story so far. A, when you are worried, learn how to crochet. B, don't be afraid to start over. C, life has mountains and valleys, ups and downs. D, blankets can keep you warm and make you feel better. So I want you to go ahead and highlight all the answers that you think are best in talking about the metaphors that have to do with Abuelita's blanket, okay? Do your best to think about and write about what you think these metaphors mean. And if you need help, please come to office hours.